The officiant's voice echoed through the chapel, but I wasn't listening to him. I was watching my sister's face, watching the exact moment confusion flickered across her perfect makeup, watching her lips try to form the words printed on the card she'd just been handed. The card I had replaced 3 hours earlier. She stumbled, just once, but it was enough. I, Victoria Ashford, do solemnly vow to relinquish all claims to the inheritance of my late grandmother's estate, acknowledging my manipulation and deceit in obtaining favor through false testimony against my sister, Claire. The chapel went silent. Not the reverent kind, the kind that comes right before an explosion. Her eyes snapped to mine. I held her gaze from my position at the altar, bouquet in hand, Maid of Honor sash across my chest. The sash she'd made me wear specifically because it made me look like her servant. I smiled. Not big, not theatrical. Just enough to let her know. She knew. But she was already halfway through, and her her almost husband, Marcus, was staring at her with his mouth open, and 200 guests were leaning forward in their seats, and the officiant was blinking rapidly like his brain was trying to reboot. This isn't my vow, Victoria stammered, her voice cracking in a way I'd never heard before. The invincible golden child, fracturing in real time. Is there a problem? I asked, stepping forward slightly, playing my role perfectly. Concerned sister, dutiful maid of honor. Do you need a moment? The rage in her eyes could have melted steel, but she couldn't say anything, not without making a bigger scene, not without explaining why the vow card was wrong, which would require explaining that she'd never actually written her own vows because she'd been too busy that week systematically destroying my reputation with our entire family to secure grandmother's estate for herself. 3 months earlier, I'd walked into a family dinner to find Victoria presenting evidence that I'd been stealing from grandmother during her final year. Forged bank statements, edited emails, a completely fabricated narrative that I'd been manipulating a dying woman for money. Our parents believed her instantly. Of course they did. Victoria was the successful one, the beautiful one, the one who could do no wrong. I was just Claire, the perpetual disappointment, the sister who existed primarily to make Victoria look better by comparison. Grandmother's will was changed within a week. The entire $3 million estate, plus the properties, plus the jewelry collection that had been verbally promised to me since I was 16, all transferred to Victoria's name exclusively. I didn't fight it. I didn't scream or cry or hire lawyers. I just went quiet. And that's when I started paying attention. See, Victoria had gotten sloppy. When you've never faced real consequences, you stop covering your tracks properly. She'd used her personal laptop for the forgeries, kept drafts of the fake emails, taken pictures of her work because she was proud of it, because she couldn't help but document her own cleverness. She'd also made one catastrophic miscalculation. She assumed I was as shallow as she was, that I cared about the money. I didn't care about the money. I cared about the truth. And more importantly, I cared about making sure that when Victoria finally fell, she fell from such a height that the impact would be absolutely catastrophic. So I played along. I accepted the family's disgust. I showed up to her engagement party and smiled and congratulated her. I agreed to be her maid of honor when she asked, because she wanted the optics of magnanimity, wanted to show everyone how gracious she was to include her troubled sister in her special day. What she didn't know was that Marcus had reached out to me 2 weeks after the engagement. Not romantically, he loved Victoria, truly, but because something had been bothering him. Some financial irregularities in Victoria's accounts. Some questions about where certain funds had come from. I could have burned her right there, but that would have been too fast, too simple. Instead, I became Marcus's confidant. I fed him tiny pieces of information, always framed as me trying to defend Victoria, trying to find innocent explanations. I let him think he was protecting her, investigating on his own, uncovering things I was too naive to understand. By the time the wedding rolled around, Marcus had discovered the forgeries. He'd found the drafts. He'd traced the timeline and realized Victoria had fabricated evidence against her own sister to steal an inheritance. But he hadn't confronted her, because I'd suggested, very gently, that maybe she was in trouble. Maybe someone was blackmailing her. Maybe she needed help, not judgment. I'd convinced him that the wedding day would be the perfect time to stage an intervention, a moment of truth, a chance for Victoria to come clean in front of everyone who mattered and start fresh. So when I offered to help coordinate the ceremony details, to handle the vow cards and make sure everything was perfect, he'd been grateful, relieved to have someone else on his side. The card Victoria was currently holding, the one with her fabricated confession printed in elegant script, wasn't the intervention Marcus had planned. That was coming later, during the reception, where he'd prepared a slideshow he thought was a romantic tribute, but was actually a detailed timeline of Victoria's fraud that I'd carefully curated. This card was just my personal touch, my opening move. "Victoria?" the officiant prompted, uncertain. She looked down at the card again, her hands shaking. She could read the rest of it, see how it ended. "I ask for forgiveness and accept full responsibility, witnessed here before God and family." If she read it aloud, she'd be confessing to everything in front of 200 witnesses, including my parents, her in-laws, and 3 family lawyers who were guests. If she didn't read it, she'd have to explain why, which would raise questions she absolutely could not answer. "I think I need..." Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "I need a minute." She turned and walked straight down the aisle, still in her $20,000 dress, and every single person in that chapel watched her go. Marcus looked at me, confusion and concern warring on his face. "What just happened?" "I'm not sure," I said softly. "Maybe cold feet? This is a big moment. I should go check on her." I found her in the bridal suite, hyperventilating, mascara starting to run. She spun on me the second I walked in. "What did you do?" she hissed. "I made you a vow card."
"Isn't that what a maid of honor does?"
"That's not the vow I wrote. That's not even..." She stopped, realizing the trap. Admitting she'd written different vows meant admitting I'd switched them, which meant admitting there was something to switch from. "I thought you'd appreciate the honesty," I said calmly. "Isn't that what marriage is about? Truth?" "You can't do this. I'll tell everyone you sabotaged my wedding. You'll what? Explain to Marcus and 200 guests why a vow card about confessing to fraud is so upsetting? Go ahead. I've got nothing to hide." Her face went white. Truly white. "How long have you known?" "Since the beginning. I found your drafts 2 days after the family dinner." "Then why didn't you..." "Because this is better," I said simply. "You taking everything from me while thinking you were untouchable, while planning this perfect wedding, while building this perfect life, and now you're standing in your perfect dress in your perfect venue, and you can feel it all crumbling, and you have no idea how far the damage goes." "What else did you do?" Her voice cracked completely. I tilted my head, considering. "Marcus knows. He's known for weeks. He's been trying to convince himself there's an explanation, but deep down, he knows exactly who you are now. The slideshow during the reception is going to be particularly illuminating." No, you're lying." "Am I? Why don't you go ask him?" She stared at me, and for the first time in our entire lives, I saw something I'd never seen before. Victoria was afraid. Of me. "You could stop this," she whispered. "You could fix the vow card, talk to Marcus, make this go away. I'll give you the inheritance back. All of it." "You think this is about money? Then what do you want?" I stepped closer, keeping my voice level, almost gentle. I want you to walk back down that aisle.
I want you to look at every single person who believed your lies about me, who cut me off without a second thought, who treated me like a criminal because you're such a good actress.
And I want you to decide. Do you read that vow and confess everything yourself? Or do you wait for Marcus to do it for you during the reception? That's not a choice. Of course it is. You can control your narrative one last time, or you can have it controlled for you. Seems fitting, honestly. You spent 3 months controlling mine. Victoria's breathing was ragged. She looked at the door, then back at me. If I walk away right now, then Marcus screens the slideshow anyway. Your guests watch a detailed breakdown of your fraud projected on a 12-foot screen during what should be your first dance, and you lose everything while looking like a coward who ran. At least reading the vow yourself has some dignity to it. She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something had shifted. The golden child was gone. What remained was just a person who'd finally been cornered. I hate you, she breathed. I know, but you made one critical mistake, Victoria. You assumed everyone else was as shallow as you, that I could be destroyed with money and reputation. You never considered that maybe I actually loved grandmother, that maybe losing her was already the worst thing that could happen to me, that maybe your betrayal didn't break me, it just clarified who you really were. I walked to the door, then paused. The wedding starts again in 5 minutes. The officiant is telling everyone it's just nerves. You've got a choice to make. I left her there. 4 minutes later, Victoria walked back down the aisle. Her makeup was fixed. Her shoulders were straight. She looked like the perfect bride again.
But when the officiant handed her the vow card, the real one this time, the one I'd left on the table for her to find, the one she'd actually written, she stared at it for a long moment. Then she looked at Marcus, really looked at him. I can't do this, she said. Not to the officiant, not to the crowd, to him. I can't marry you. I'm not who you think I am. The chapel erupted. Marcus reached for her, confused, desperate. But Victoria was already backing away, shaking her head. She ran. For the second time. But this time, she didn't stop in the bridal suite. I watched her go through the chapel doors in her perfect dress, and I thought about grandmother, about the last conversation we'd had, when she'd told me that truth always finds a way to surface, that patience and integrity would outlast deception every time. Marcus found me after. The slideshow was still on his laptop, ready to go, but there was no reception to show it at. Did you know she was going to run? He asked. No, I said honestly. I thought she'd choose the confession. What was on the first vow card, the one that made her leave? I pulled it from my clutch and handed it to him. He read it, his expression darkening with every line. Is this true? All of it? Every word. I have the evidence if you want it. The drafts, the timeline. Everything. He stared at the card for a long time. Then he looked at me, and there was something raw in his eyes. She destroyed you. Your whole family turned on you. Yes. And you just waited? I waited. I watched. I learned exactly who everyone really was when they thought it didn't matter. That's terrifying. I smiled. Small. Controlled. No. What's terrifying is building your entire life on lies and never considering that someone might be patient enough to let you finish before pulling out the foundation. Marcus left after that. The guests filtered out, confused, gossiping, already spinning the story. My parents didn't speak to me, still convinced I'd somehow sabotaged Victoria's perfect day. They'd learn the truth eventually. Marcus would show them the evidence, or Victoria would confess,
or the weight of it would simply become impossible to carry. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I walked out of that chapel in my Maid of Honor dress, holding a bouquet of flowers I'd never thrown, and I felt lighter than I had in months. Victoria had wanted me at her wedding to prove her power, to show everyone that even after destroying me, I'd still show up and play my part. But what she never understood was that I'd stopped playing her games the moment I decided to build my own. And unlike her vows, mine would never need to be swapped, because I'd meant every single word.